The sun was setting over the ruined colony, its orange light falling across broken walls and the remains of machines that once hummed with life. Smoke rose in the distance, thin and gray against the sky. The battle had ended hours ago, but silence was heavier than noise. Bodies of both human and alien soldiers lay scattered, and the ground carried the smell of metal and dust. Ryan walked slowly between the wreckage, his boots crunching on glass and stone. He was not a soldier in shining armor, not a leader with orders. He was just a helper, one of the many who had been sent to search for survivors after the clash. Most of the others had already left, carrying the wounded back to safer ground. But Ryan stayed, checking the corners where no one else wanted to look. He believed that life, no matter how small, should not be left behind. His eyes caught movement near a broken tower. At first, he thought it was just wind moving a torn flag. But then he saw her. A figure, tall and proud even as she leaned against the stone for support. Her skin was marked with a faint silver tone that shimmered against the sunset. Her hair, dark and braided with pieces of metal, fell across her shoulders. She wore armor that was cracked and dented, the symbol of a crown etched on her chest plate. Ryan froze. He had heard stories of the alien queen who led her people with unshaken will. Her name was Sarah. Even wounded, she carried herself like a ruler, her chin raised, her eyes sharp as a blade. But there was no denying the truth: she was hurt. Blood trailed from her back, staining the ground where she had tried to walk. She pressed her hand against the wall, but her legs trembled. Her guard was nowhere to be seen. Ryan's heart pounded. He could turn back, pretend he never saw her. A queen of another world was not his concern. Yet as he watched her stagger, something inside him refused to move away. She was not just a queen, not just an enemy commander. She was a living being fighting to stand against pain. He took a step forward, careful not to startle her. His voice was low, steady. "You are hurt. Let me help." Her head snapped toward him. Even in weakness, her gaze was fierce. She tried to straighten her body, as if to remind him of who she was. "Human," she said, her voice rough but commanding. "Stay back." Ryan hesitated but did not retreat. "If you stay like this, you will fall. No one else is here. Let me look at your wound." Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment he thought she might strike him with the blade she still carried in her hand. But the weight of the weapon was too much for her arm, and it lowered slowly. She leaned harder against the wall. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you help me, when your kind sees me as enemy?" Ryan thought of the bodies he had seen today. Both human and alien had fallen, their blood mixing in the dust. "Because pain is pain," he said simply. "And life is life. That is enough reason." Sarah's lips curved in something that was not quite a smile, not quite a scorn. She looked at him as if she wanted to read his soul. Finally, she let out a tired breath and gave a small nod. "Do what you will, human. But know this: if you touch me without care, I will remember." Ryan approached slowly, showing his hands were empty. He tore a strip of cloth from his own sleeve, soaking it with water from his flask. The wound on her back was worse than he had imagined. The armor had split, and beneath it, her skin was cut open in a long gash. Blood had dried around the edges, but it was still seeping slowly. He spoke gently as he worked. "This will sting. I will clean it first." When the wet cloth touched her wound, Sarah drew in a sharp breath, her body tensing. Her hand gripped the wall until her knuckles turned pale. For a moment, Ryan feared she would push him away. But she stayed still, her pride holding her upright. "You dare," she whispered, her voice shaking between anger and pain. "Among my people, only a spouse may tend to a queen's back wound. To do this is to cross into sacred ground." Ryan paused, surprised. He had not known of such customs. But his eyes remained calm as he answered. "I did not come for custom. I came because you were bleeding. If my hands can stop it, then that is reason enough." Her head lowered slightly, hiding her eyes. He continued cleaning, removing dirt and blood, wrapping the cloth tight to slow the bleeding. Each movement was careful, respectful. He worked not as one touching royalty, but as one human tending to another soul in need. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching long across the ground. Around them, the battlefield seemed to fade into silence. Only the sound of water dripping from the cloth and the quiet rhythm of their breaths filled the air. When he finished, he tied the cloth firmly and stepped back. "It is not perfect," he said softly. "But it will hold until you can see a healer." Sarah turned her head, her sharp eyes studying him again. This time, there was no threat in them, only a strange depth he could not name. "You are bold, human," she said. "Bold, or foolish. Few would stand before me without fear." Ryan gave a faint smile, though it carried no pride. "Fear does not stop wounds from bleeding. And it does not save lives." For the first time, Sarah's lips curved into a small, genuine smile, though it was faint and quickly gone. She shifted her weight, standing a little straighter, as if his hands had given her strength. The night breeze swept across the broken colony. Ryan looked at her, unsure what would come next. He knew only one thing: his choice to step forward had changed more than he could yet understand. The night deepened over the ruins, the stars above bright and sharp against the black sky. The battle had ended, but the land still seemed to echo with the clash of steel and fire. Ryan guided his eyes back to Sarah, who stood with her back pressed to the broken wall. She looked stronger than before, but the strain in her face told the truth. The wound still burned. Ryan stepped closer, keeping his voice calm. "The bleeding is slowed, but it must be cleaned again. If it closes with dirt inside, it will poison you." Sarah turned her head slightly, her sharp eyes catching the starlight. "You speak as if you know wounds well. Are you a healer among your kind?" Ryan shook his head. "No, I am no healer. I learned from watching, from patching up small hurts when no one else would. I only know enough to keep life from slipping away." Sarah studied him for a moment. She could tell he was not boasting. His voice carried no pride, only steady truth. She gave a slow nod. "Then do what you must. But remember my words. Touching the wound of a queen is not an act without meaning. Among my people, it binds two lives in a way no words can change." Ryan hesitated. He wanted to respect her customs, but he also saw the way her legs shook under her armor. He could not leave her like this. "Then let it be what it must," he said. "For me, the meaning is simple. You are hurt, and I will not walk away." She looked at him with an expression he could not read. It was not anger, not gratitude, but something in between. She finally lowered her head. "Very well. Begin." Ryan tore more strips of cloth from his tunic, dipping them into the little water left in his flask. He motioned for her to turn slightly so he could reach the wound better. She moved slowly, her breath catching as she shifted. The armor groaned against her body, cracked and heavy. When the cloth touched the wound again, she stiffened, a sharp hiss escaping her lips. Her body trembled, but she did not pull away. Ryan spoke softly, his voice like steady ground beneath her feet. I know it hurts. Just a little longer. She gritted her teeth, gripping the edge of the stone wall. Do you know what it means, human? She said, her voice low. To clean the wound of my back is to touch the place that bears my strength. It is where my people believe a queen's spirit rests. Only one chosen as life partner may be allowed near it. To any other, it is forbidden. Ryan listened, his hands still working with care. He was silent for a moment, then spoke. And yet, here I am. Not chosen, not bound by your law. But still, I care for your life. Sometimes, meaning is not made by rule. Sometimes, it is made by choice. Her breath slowed, her eyes softening though her body stayed tense. Strange words for one so young, she said. I learned them from seeing loss, he answered quietly. Too many times, I saw people wait for permission before helping, and by the time they moved, it was too late. Sarah fell silent. His words struck her more deeply than she wished to show. The wound was deep, the skin torn where the blade had cut her. Ryan cleaned away the dried blood, then pressed the cloth firmly to draw out the dirt. She shivered as pain spread through her back, but she held herself still. Her pride would not allow her to cry out. Finally, he wrapped fresh cloth tightly around her, knotting it where it would hold. It is done for now, he said, stepping back. You must rest soon, or the wound will tear open again. Sarah straightened slowly, testing her weight. She swayed but did not fall. You have hands that do not shake, human, she said. You work with care, though this is not your skill. Why risk so much for me? Ryan met her gaze without fear. Because you needed it? Nothing more. For a long moment, the silence between them was heavy. Then, to his surprise, she gave a small laugh, low and tired. You speak with simple words, yet they cut sharper than a blade. Perhaps that is why you dared to touch what others would not. She moved away from the wall, testing her steps. Each one was slow, her armor weighing heavy, but she did not stumble. Ryan kept close, ready to catch her if she fell. She noticed and frowned. Do not hover like a guard. I am not so weak. Ryan nodded but stayed near enough to reach her. Even the strongest can fall if they forget they are wounded. I will walk beside you, not as guard, but as one who helped. Sarah tilted her head, watching him from the corner of her eye. You speak as if you already belong to my circle. Careful, human. My people may not take kindly to your boldness. Then I will face them if I must, he said calmly. Her lips pressed together in thought. She could not understand him. Humans were known to fear her, to avoid her. Yet this one did not flinch, even when warned. The stars above spread wider as the night deepened. The wind carried dust across the ruins, whispering through broken walls. Ryan and Sarah stood in the middle of it, two figures from different worlds, bound by a moment neither had expected. Sarah touched the edge of the bandage gently, her fingers brushing the cloth. This act cannot be undone, she said at last. When my people see this mark, they will know someone touched the sacred wound. And they will ask who. What answer will you give? Ryan looked at her with steady eyes. The truth. That I saw someone in need, and I did what I could. If they do not understand, then let them ask me themselves. Her eyes lingered on him, filled with something between challenge and respect. You are either brave, human, or you are blind to what awaits you. Ryan gave a small smile. Maybe both. But I would not change what I did. Sarah stood taller, her figure outlined by the starlight, her pride unbroken even in pain. She turned her gaze to the horizon, where the ruins stretched far. Then your path is tied to mine now, whether you wished it or not. You touched the wound of a queen, and by the law of my people, you are no longer only an outsider. Ryan did not fully understand the weight of her words, but he felt their truth. Something had shifted in the silence of the night, something that would shape both their lives. The battlefield was quiet, but in that quiet, a bond was sealed. The night was long, but neither Ryan nor Sarah rested. The ruins around them were too quiet, and the wind carried faint echoes that made the silence heavy. Ryan kept watch, sitting on a piece of fallen stone, while Sarah leaned against the wall, her body still fighting the wound. Her breathing came in slow waves, controlled but strained. Ryan noticed the way she kept her back straight even when the pain pulled at her. She refused to bend, even when no one else was watching. That pride told him more about her than any story could. After a while, Ryan stood and stepped closer. I need to check the wound again. The bandage may not hold through the night. Sarah turned her head, her eyes sharp even in the dim light. You think I am so fragile that I will fall apart before the dawn? Ryan shook his head. No, I think you are strong. But even strong things break if they are left uncared for. Strength is not enough when a wound is deep. For a moment, she looked as if she would argue, but then she gave a quiet sigh. Very well. Do what you think is needed. He unwrapped the cloth slowly, careful not to pull too hard. The bandage was soaked with fresh blood, darker now in the night air. He could see the edges of the cut, raw and angry. It was better than before, but not safe yet. Sarah closed her eyes as he cleaned it again, her body still as stone. Only the tightening of her jaw showed the pain she felt. You do not cry out, Ryan said softly. A queen does not give pain the power of her voice, she answered without opening her eyes. He dipped another strip of cloth into the water and pressed it gently. Even queens are flesh and blood. Even they can feel. That does not make them less. Her eyes opened, sharp and piercing. She studied him in silence for a long time. You speak as though you see through the crown, she said. As if you look only at the person beneath. That is all I can see, Ryan replied simply. A person who bleeds like anyone else. Her gaze lingered on him, and for the first time, he thought he saw her guard weaken. Not fully, but enough to show the truth she carried. She was tired. When he finished, he tied the new bandage firmly. Then he leaned back, sitting on the stone again. It will need more than cloth and water, he said. Your people must have healers who know better ways. Sarah nodded slowly. Yes. But they are far from here. The battle scattered my guard. I do not know who lives and who does not. To return to them, I must walk. And each step will test me. Ryan looked at her, his face steady. Then I will walk with you. She raised an eyebrow, her expression caught between disbelief and amusement. You are not my soldier. You have no bond to me. Why would you risk so much? Ryan thought of the battlefield, of the bodies lying silent in the dust. Because I found you here, he said. If I turn away now, your life may end before it should. That would weigh heavier on me than any risk. Her lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, but something close. Strange human. You speak with no fear of law or throne. You act as if we are equal. To me, Ryan said, all life is equal. The fire in her eyes softened, just for a breath. She looked away, her gaze fixed on the stars above. For the first time that night, her shoulders eased, and she let silence settle between them. Hours passed. Ryan dozed lightly, waking at every sound of shifting stone or stirring wind. Sarah rested with her eyes closed, though he knew she was not fully asleep. Her kind, like his, could not rest easy in the middle of ruins. When dawn touched the horizon with pale light, Ryan checked the wound again. The bleeding had slowed more than he expected. It gave him hope. You are healing, he said. Sarah opened her eyes, the faint light catching their silver shade. Your hands made it so. Perhaps there is more skill in you than you admit. Ryan smiled faintly. Or perhaps your strength carried you through the night. She stood slowly, testing her weight. The bandage held, though her movement was still stiff. She looked at him, her voice quiet but firm. You have given me more than aid, human. You have crossed into a place no one outside my people has ever been allowed. Ryan tilted his head. Do you regret it? Her eyes locked with his. I do not know. What is done cannot be undone. But my heart tells me this: when you touched the wound, you gave a part of yourself to me. Whether you wished to or not. He said nothing, only listened. She had spoken with the honesty of a queen who knew the weight of words. Finally, she straightened, her pride returning to her stance. Now the path ahead is clear. I must return to my people. You may follow if you choose, but know this: the act you have done will change how they see you. You may be honored. Or you may be hated. The law does not bend for comfort. Ryan nodded. Then I will face what comes. I made my choice when I touched the wound. I will not turn back now. For the first time, her expression softened with something close to respect. She gave him a short nod. Then walk beside me, human. For now, you are bound to me. The rising sun spread across the ruins, washing away the shadows of the night. Together, they began to move toward the horizon, their steps slow but steady. One was a queen who carried the weight of a people. The other was a human who carried only a simple belief that no life should be left behind. The morning sun rose higher, painting the ruins with golden light. Dust glittered in the air as Ryan and Sarah walked slowly through the broken streets of the colony. The silence of the battlefield pressed around them, yet the quiet steps they shared seemed to carry meaning of their own. Sarah's wound was still fresh, but she walked tall, each movement steady with pride. Ryan stayed close, ready to help if she faltered, though he kept a respectful distance. She was a queen, and even if she allowed his aid, he knew her pride would not permit constant hovering. They moved past the remains of old homes and machines, the land scarred by fire. Ryan's eyes scanned for danger, but his thoughts often returned to her words from the night before. She had told him that touching her back wound was not just healing. It was a custom, a bond meant only for those closest to her. He did not fully understand what it meant for her people, but he could feel its weight in her silence. At last, Sarah spoke, her voice calm but carrying a note of warning. Ryan, you must know the truth before we reach my people. What you did last night is not a small matter. Among my kind, a queen does not let anyone touch the wound on her back. That place is sacred. It is believed to hold the core of her strength. Only one chosen to share her life may be allowed there. Ryan listened carefully. His steps slowed, but his face remained steady. Then your people will think I crossed a line I should not have. Sarah gave a small nod. Yes. Some may see it as an insult, others as a claim. Either way, they will not ignore it. To them, you are no longer only a human who happened to be near. You are part of a bond that was never meant for outsiders. Ryan was quiet for a while. He thought of how simple the act had seemed to him. A wound needed care, and he had given it. He had not thought of customs, only of life. But now, he understood why her eyes had carried such weight when she warned him. Finally, he said, "I cannot change what I did. And I would not. If the choice came again, I would still help you. Even if the cost is heavy." Cyril looked at him, her silver eyes shining with something unreadable. "You are bold, human. Perhaps too bold. Do you not fear what may follow? My people are proud. Some may see you as a thief who stole what was not his." Ryan gave a faint smile, though it carried no pride. "I fear letting someone die more than I fear being misunderstood." Her lips curved slightly, a shadow of a smile. "Strange words for one of your kind. Yet they carry a strength I cannot dismiss." They walked on, the ruins slowly giving way to wild ground where plants had begun to grow again. The path was rough, and Sarah's wound made her step slower, but she never asked for pause. Ryan admired her will. As the sun climbed higher, they found a small stream. Ryan guided her there, and she allowed him to help her sit by the water's edge. She lowered her hands into the cool stream, watching ripples move across the surface. For a moment, she seemed less like a queen and more like someone simply seeking peace. Ryan refilled his flask and rinsed the cloths he had used. When he returned, Sarah was watching him closely. "Do you know why the wound of the back carries such meaning among my people?" she asked. He shook his head. "No." "Tell me." She drew in a slow breath. "Long ago, in the old wars of my world, our queens fought on the front lines. The greatest danger was always an attack from behind. A wound there meant weakness, and only one who was trusted beyond all others was allowed to see it, to touch it, to heal it. That custom became law. To place your hands on that wound is to say, without words, I will guard what others may strike. It is not just care. It is a vow." Ryan listened in silence. Her words were heavy, carrying history and tradition. He understood now why she had warned him, why her people would react strongly. What he had done was no small thing. When she finished, he spoke softly. "Then perhaps I made a vow without knowing. But even so, I will not break it." Her eyes searched his face. "You do not speak lightly, do you?" Ryan shook his head. "No. Words lose meaning if they are thrown without care." Cyril looked away, her gaze fixed on the flowing water. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she spoke again, her voice quieter than before. "If you truly mean those words, then you have stepped into a bond that even death cannot easily break. My people will not take it lightly. And neither should you." "I do not," Ryan said. The stream carried their reflections, broken by ripples. For the first time, Sarah allowed herself to relax slightly. The stern line of her shoulders eased, and the hard edge in her voice softened. "You are unlike the humans I have seen in battle," she said. "Most fight with fear or with hunger for victory. But you fight in a different way. Not with blades, but with hands that mend. It unsettles me, yet it also gives me pause." Ryan sat beside her, looking at the water. "I never wished for battle. I only wished that fewer lives would be lost in it. If I can give back even a little, it feels worth it." The Queen studied him again, and though she did not speak, her eyes seemed to hold new respect. When they rose to continue their path, Sura walked with steadier steps. The wound was still there, but the weight of it seemed lighter, as if the bond she had explained gave her a strength beyond flesh. By the time the sun began to set once more, she spoke again, her voice strong and clear. "Ryan, when we reach my people, remember this. Some will test you. Some will honor you. But no matter what they say, do not deny what you have done. If you step back, they will see weakness. If you stand firm, they will see truth." Ryan nodded. "I will stand firm." Her eyes held his, and for the first time, she gave a true smile, small but real. "Then perhaps you will survive what is to come." As night fell, they walked on side by side, two figures bound not by choice of law but by the weight of custom and the strength of simple compassion. The path grew smoother as the ruins gave way to the wild plains beyond. Tall grass bent with the wind, and the sky stretched wide above them, filled with fading light from the second sunset. Ryan and Sura moved steadily, though the wound on her back slowed their pace. Still, she refused to show weakness. Ryan carried the weight of silence between them. He kept his eyes on the horizon but often glanced at her, watching the way she carried herself. Her steps were careful, but her pride made each one firm. He could not help but admire her strength. At last, lights flickered in the distance. Small fires, carefully hidden, marking the camp of survivors. Sura's eyes narrowed, her breath steadying. "My people are there," she said. "They will not expect me to return on foot. And they will not expect me to return with you." Ryan nodded. He had thought of this moment many times during their walk. The Queen's words about custom still echoed in his mind. Her people would see what he had done, and they would judge. As they drew nearer, figures appeared at the edge of the camp. Guards with spears stepped forward, their armor gleaming faintly in the firelight. Their eyes widened when they recognized Sura. In an instant, they fell to their knees, striking their weapons against the ground in salute. "My queen," one of them said, his voice shaking with awe. "We thought you lost. We searched the field but found no sign of you." Sura stood tall, her presence commanding even with the bandage across her back. "I live," she said. "And I return not by chance, but with aid." She stepped aside, revealing Ryan behind her. The guards' eyes shifted sharply. Their expressions changed from relief to suspicion. One of them frowned, pointing at the human. "Why is he here, my queen? Why does an outsider walk at your side?" Sura's voice was calm, but it carried weight like steel. "Because he saved me when no one else was near. When my strength failed, he stood. When blood flowed, he stopped it. Without him, I would not stand before you now." The guards exchanged uneasy glances. One of them stepped closer, his gaze fixed on the bandage tied across her back. His eyes widened in shock. "That wound, it has been touched. It has been tended. By him." Sura's eyes narrowed, but she did not look away. "Yes." He placed his hands where only one chosen should stand. He touched the wound of a queen, and he bound himself to it. "By the law of our people, it is so." A murmur rose among the guards. Some looked horrified, others angry, a few uncertain. The guard nearest to her clenched his jaw. "My queen, forgive my words, but this cannot be. He is human. He is not of us. How can he claim a bond sacred to our kind?" Before Sura could answer, Ryan stepped forward. His voice was steady, though his heart pounded. I did not seek a bond. I did not know your law. I only saw someone in need, and I gave what I could. If that act has meaning, then I will not run from it. I will stand by it. The guards stared at him, surprised by his calmness. One of them sneered. You speak boldly, outsider. Do you think words alone can shield you from the law? Sarah raised her hand, silencing them. Enough. You forget who stands before you. The law is clear. The act has been done, and its weight is mine to bear. You may question, but you will not dishonor the truth. He saved me. Without him, you would have no queen to kneel to. The camp fell quiet at her words. The guards lowered their heads, though unease still lingered in their eyes. They stepped aside, allowing her and Ryan to pass. Inside the camp, many turned to see their queen return. Cries of joy filled the air as soldiers and civilians alike dropped to their knees, their voices calling her name. Yet when they saw the human beside her, confusion spread quickly. Whispers rose, sharp and doubtful. Sarah walked through the crowd with unshaken grace. She led Ryan to the great tent at the center, where the council of her people waited. Torches burned at the entrance, casting long shadows. Inside, the council stood, their eyes wide with shock at her return. An elder with silver hair stepped forward, bowing deeply. Queen Sarah, we feared the worst. The field was lost, and many believed you fallen. I am not fallen, she said firmly. And I live because of this human. She motioned to Ryan. When I was struck down, he tended the wound none of you were there to heal. He crossed the sacred line without fear. The council gasped, voices rising in alarm. One of them pointed at Ryan, his face dark with anger. Unthinkable. A human cannot share the bond of a queen. This is a violation of all tradition. Sarah lifted her chin, her voice sharp. It is not violation. It is law. The act was done, the bond sealed. You may not like it, but you cannot deny it. If you question him, then question me, for I allowed it. If not for his hands, you would bow to ashes instead of a queen. The tent filled with silence. The council members looked at one another, struggling to answer. The elder finally spoke, his tone cautious. Then it is true. The law binds even across worlds. But know this, Queen Sarah. His presence will divide our people. Some will see honor. Others will see betrayal. You must be ready for both. I am ready, she said. Her eyes moved to Ryan, steady and unblinking. And so must he be. Ryan felt the weight of her gaze, but he did not step back. He nodded once. I will not turn away. The council murmured again, their voices low, their expressions uncertain. At last, the elder bowed once more. Then it is done. Let the people judge, but let the law stand. He has touched the wound, and the bond is sealed. When Sarah and Ryan left the tent, the camp was alive with whispers. Some bowed to him out of respect for their queen's word. Others glared, their eyes cold with suspicion. The air was heavy with both honor and doubt. As the night deepened, Sarah stood beside Ryan at the edge of the camp, watching the fires burn. Her voice was quiet but strong. Now you see, Ryan. The path ahead is not simple. You are marked by my people's law. Some will follow you. Some will hate you. But none will ignore you. Ryan's gaze remained steady on the flames. Then I will walk it, no matter how hard it is. I made my choice when I touched your wound. For a long moment, she looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then, for the first time in front of her people, she spoke softly enough that only he could hear. Then perhaps you are more than human. Perhaps you are already part of us. The fires crackled, and the camp whispered around them. The bond that had begun in silence now stood in the open, unbreakable and undeniable. The night passed slowly in the camp. Fires burned low, and the sound of whispers never truly faded. Ryan lay awake on the ground near the Queen's tent. He stared at the stars, feeling the weight of many eyes even in the darkness. Some looked at him with respect, but many looked with anger. When dawn came, the camp stirred with activity. Soldiers sharpened weapons, messengers ran between tents, and the wounded were carried out to be treated. Ryan stood and stretched his sore arms. He could feel the distance in the air around him. The people gave him space, not out of kindness, but out of suspicion. Sarah emerged from her tent, her back straight though the wound still troubled her. Her presence commanded silence. She looked at Ryan and motioned for him to walk with her. Together they moved through the camp until they reached the wide training ground where the council and warriors gathered. The elder who had spoken the night before stood at the center, leaning on his staff. His voice rang clear. People of the Queen, we face a choice. Our law binds her to this human, for he has done what none else could. But our law also gives us the right to test him. We must see if his bond is true or if his presence brings only weakness. A murmur rose among the crowd. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked uneasy. Ryan felt the weight of their judgment pressing on him. The elder raised his hand. This human must face the trial. He must stand before challenge, not with words, but with action. If he fails, the bond will be broken, and he will leave this place. If he succeeds, he will be accepted by our law and our people. Ryan stepped forward, his voice calm. What must I face? The elder's eyes were sharp. The trial is of courage and trust. You must enter the valley alone. There, a creature waits, born from the war. It has stalked our wounded and killed many. If you can drive it away or survive its attack, you will prove your worth. The crowd stirred again, some in approval, others in doubt. Ryan's heart tightened, but he kept his face steady. He had faced dangers before, though never one like this. Sarah spoke then, her voice strong. This trial is harsh. He is not of our world. Yet he saved me when death was near. Do not forget that. The elder bowed his head. We do not forget, my queen. But we must know if his strength can stand beside yours. Ryan turned to her, meeting her eyes. She searched his face, as if weighing whether he should refuse. But he nodded once. I will face it. That evening, under the fading light, Ryan walked with a small group of warriors to the edge of the valley. The air was heavy with tension. The valley below was dark, its rocks jagged, and its shadows deep. The warriors stopped at the rim, refusing to go further. One of them handed Ryan a spear. The weapon was longer than what he was used to, but it felt solid in his grip. You go alone, the warrior said coldly. If you come back alive, you will have earned your place. If not, the law will release you. Ryan nodded. Without a word, he stepped down into the valley. The air grew colder, and the silence pressed against his ears. He moved carefully, his eyes scanning the rocks and the shadows. He thought of Earth, of the quiet forests he had walked in his youth. The stars above were different here, yet the feeling of being small under the sky was the same. He breathed deeply, steadying himself. Then he heard it. A low growl, deep and heavy, echoing from the rocks. His grip on the spear tightened. The creature emerged slowly, its body covered in dark scales, its eyes glowing faintly. It moved on 4 legs, each one powerful and clawed. Its breath came in harsh bursts, steaming in the cold air. Ryan's heart pounded, but he stood his ground. The beast circled him, its growl rising. He shifted his stance, holding the spear ready. The creature lunged. Ryan leapt aside, the ground shaking beneath its weight. He swung the spear, the point grazing its hide. The beast roared in anger, its tail whipping the air. Ryan rolled away, his breath sharp in his chest. Again it came at him, and again he dodged, his movements driven by instinct more than skill. He struck once more, this time piercing its shoulder. The beast howled and thrashed, but the wound only fueled its rage. Ryan stumbled back, his arms trembling. The spear was his only chance, and he knew it would not last long. The creature's eyes locked on him, glowing brighter, and it charged again. At that moment, a voice echoed in his mind. Calm, steady, and strong. It was Sarah's voice, carried not by sound, but by something deeper. Stand. Do not yield. The bond is with you. Ryan gritted his teeth, planting his feet. As the beast leapt, he thrust the spear with all his strength. The point struck true, driving into the creature's chest. The force knocked him backward, but the beast let out a cry of pain and stumbled. It staggered, snarled once more, then turned and fled into the darkness of the valley. Ryan lay on the ground, his body aching, his breath ragged. But he was alive. Slowly, he stood, leaning on the broken spear. He looked up at the rim of the valley. The warriors were watching, their eyes wide with disbelief. He climbed back up, step by step, until he reached the top. The warriors stepped aside, their faces filled with something new. Not respect, not yet, but recognition. When Ryan returned to the camp, the people gathered. Whispers spread quickly, and soon all knew what had happened. Sarah stood waiting, her eyes fixed on him. You faced it, she said softly. And you did not fall. Ryan nodded, too tired for words. The elder stepped forward, his voice carrying to all. The trial is complete. The human has stood against the beast and lived. By our law, he is bound to the queen. By his courage, he has earned his place. The crowd erupted with mixed cries. Some shouted in anger, others in awe. But the law was clear. None could deny what had been proven. Sarah placed her hand on Ryan's shoulder, steady and sure. You chose to stand, when you could have turned away. That choice binds you now, not just to me, but to all of us. Ryan met her gaze, his voice low but firm. Then I will not turn back. The fires of the camp burned brighter that night, not only with heat but with tension. A choice had been made, and its weight would shape the days to come. The sun rose slowly over the camp, bathing the plains in soft light. The fires from the night before had dimmed, leaving only the warmth of morning. The people of the Queen moved cautiously, still murmuring about the events of the trial. Some looked at Ryan with awe, others with suspicion. Yet none could ignore him. Sarah stood near the center of the camp, her back straight and her posture regal. The wound on her back was healing slowly, but she bore it with pride. Her silver eyes scanned the people around her, measuring their thoughts. Her attention, however, always returned to Ryan, standing beside her with quiet determination. The elder approached, leaning on his staff, his face serious but calm. Queen Sara, human Ryan has faced the trial and emerged unbroken. By our law, the bond is confirmed. Yet the people still question. They do not understand the depth of what has been done. Sara nodded. Then we must show them. Not through words, but through action. He saved my life when no one else could. He faced death itself and returned. If that does not prove his worth, no words ever will. Ryan listened quietly, feeling the weight of her gaze. It was not heavy with expectation, but with trust. He realized that the moment he touched her wound had grown far beyond simple care. It was more than law, more than custom. It was a bond built in silence, strengthened by courage. The people gathered in the great clearing of the camp, their eyes on the queen and the human who had changed the course of the trial. Mothers held children close, warriors whispered to each other, and the council stood stiffly, uncertain how to respond. Sara raised her hand, calling for attention. The murmurs died slowly as her voice carried across the clearing. People of my kingdom, I return to you alive. I return because this human, Ryan, did what none of you dared. He touched the wound that is sacred to me. He did so not for honor, not for reward, but because life mattered more than law. Ryan kept his gaze steady on her. He had long ago learned that words alone could not carry meaning. It was the actions behind them that shaped truth. Sara continued, her voice softening slightly. I do not ask you to understand him immediately. I only ask that you see the truth of what has been done. A life saved, courage shown, loyalty proven. These are not small things. They are the foundation of bonds that cannot be broken lightly. The crowd was quiet. Some looked astonished. Others frowned, struggling with the idea that a human, a foreigner, could share such a connection with their queen. The elder finally stepped forward. By law, the bond is clear, he said. By courage, the bond is proven. But the people must see that trust is the greatest measure. Let him act beside the queen in the days to come. Let them see his loyalty through deeds. Only then will hearts accept what law has bound. Sara nodded. So it will be. Ryan, your place is by my side. Not as a guard, not as a servant, but as one who has proven loyalty greater than many who share blood with this land. Ryan bowed slightly, a gesture of respect rather than submission. I will stand by you, Queen Sara. Not for power, not for honor, but because I believe in the bond that began with trust and choice. She studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke softly, almost to herself. Perhaps the greatest bonds are not those chosen by law, but those built in courage and care. The morning passed with quiet observation. Ryan moved among the people, helping where he could, showing no pride in his actions. He tended to minor injuries, organized supplies, and shared the burden of the day. Slowly, the whispers began to shift. Some who had doubted him nodded in respect. Others remained wary, but none could deny his presence now. As the sun reached its peak, Sara called him to stand beside her. Together, they watched over the camp. Her back, once vulnerable and wounded, now bore the mark of healing, but the memory remained. Ryan's hands had touched more than skin. They had touched trust, courage, and the quiet foundation of something new. Days passed. The people of the Queen began to see the human not as an outsider, but as a figure of strength and loyalty. He did not demand recognition, and that humility made the respect grow. Soldiers who had doubted him now trained with him. Civilians asked for guidance in small ways, and he gave it patiently. Sarah observed silently. She noticed how he moved among her people, how he spoke with simple honesty. She had expected fear, perhaps even arrogance, but instead she saw compassion and courage. Her respect for him deepened, and a quiet trust settled between them. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the fires glowed, Sarah approached Ryan. She placed her hand lightly on his shoulder. "You have chosen to stay. You have chosen to face not only the trial of the valley but the judgment of my people. That choice is rare. That choice is strong. I trust you now, fully." Ryan looked at her. "I did not choose for reward. I chose because it was right. Because life mattered. Because trust mattered." She nodded, and for a moment, the sounds of the camp faded. Only the crackle of fire and the distant call of animals reached them. In that moment, no law, no custom, no question of outsiders mattered. There was only the bond between them, quiet, steady, and unbreakable. "Then we begin," she said softly. "Not as queen and stranger, but as two who have shared courage and trust. Let the people see it, and let it shape the days to come." Ryan nodded. "Then we will face it together." From that night onward, the camp saw a new rhythm. The queen moved with renewed confidence, the human beside her steady and unwavering. The bond was no longer hidden. It was not spoken openly in laws or declarations, but it was clear to all who watched. When threats came, Ryan stood with Sarah. When decisions were needed, he offered insight and counsel. When fear rose, he calmed it, not through command, but through presence. Slowly, the whispers of doubt faded. Respect grew, and a quiet admiration spread. The bond that had begun with a simple act of care now shaped the course of lives. It was a bond of courage, trust, and choice. It was a bond that neither law nor fear could undo. In the quiet of the night, Sarah and Ryan would stand at the edge of the camp, looking at the stars. She would rest a hand on his arm, and he would feel the strength of her trust. Words were unnecessary. The bond had grown beyond what either had imagined. The world around them was still uncertain, still dangerous. But they had found in each other something rare and unshakable. And in that bond, both found a kind of peace that no battle, no law, and no custom could ever take away. The queen and the human walked side by side, their pasts behind them and a future shared before them. And in that union, quiet and strong, they began a new story for their people.